Welcome everybody to a special Rugby Bit Zoom episode. Classic Sharky. Not some folks don't knowing much to do in their weeks, chilled weeks. So what you want to do is chat about rugby. I mean, clearly, viewers, you can see we don't do much during the week. We pretend to work, but actually, we just keep looking for excuses to actually talk some rugby. But today we're covering everything chasing the sun. Now we'll look to obviously preview or review every single episode like we did for the World Cup. So yeah, it's going to be great going down memory lane and obviously seeing it from Rusty's perspective, the player's perspective. And Sharky, I mean, let's start. Yeah, first of all, how's it, mate? And what a great first episode.
Yeah, Cook's high, man. What an awesome. I'm so happy to do this. Just popped it on the group today. Like we have to. I was like, why are we not doing something about chasing the sun? We should really be talking about it. So I'm glad we can put this together. I'm good. But yeah, like we're chatting about the emotions and the feelings and watching things play out. It's almost you mentioned like how a good documentary always takes you back, but you don't quite know what the end result is. And I felt that the same. I think, watching that, it's taking you back almost as if it's live, like as if all this other stuff hasn't happened yet. Like we're watching it as if it's really happening for the first time. It was wild, but it was awesome.
I mean, as you're watching Sharky, I think for me it was when they start talking about the squad announcements and they talked about obviously like they briefly like brushed through like some of the injuries like Andre Pollard was going to be there, Lukhanyo Am was going to be there. What I still remember our group chat when we knew that we're taking four scrum offs. Henry's not there. Lukhanyo, did that anxiety set back into you like thinking, what the fuck are we gonna do come World Cup time with only 110?
Oh man, and Matt Pierce was talking. He was talking about the tens, like when you're going into World Cup with one recognized ten, and I was like, oh, don't do this to me again. Um,
No, two,
yeah,
don't
like
forget Faf. Don't forget Faf.
oh, my bad. And especially when Faf, like when he's talking and he's running across the field, it's like I decided I'm going to go tell Manny, don't worry, I'll do the kicking. You're playing so well now, don't worry about that. Like it's amazing how all that happened. The team conversations and picking up like the squad announcement, and I love something that I think that probably a lot of people don't think of because I didn't, and I think a lot of people probably be in the same boat. Is there's like a massive discussion going on, and they're highlighted with Jasper and Dwayne at 8 and who's going to start. And I love how like they talk about Dwayne must start because Jasper doesn't talk. And Rusty just came in and he's like, Jacques, if you think he doesn't do it, then he doesn't do it. And I was like, that's something quite serious. And then Zwandile Stick was saying, he's like, yeah, but I've seen him grow. I've seen him do this. I love those debates. And honestly, when we were talking about the squad prior to the World Cup and who we have, where we had two different squads that could play two different game plans, but each of the squads could also play our game plan, if it makes sense. Those conversations, that team selection meeting must be wild because, I mean, so Manny was going to start at 10. Like that's happening. I think Damien is like dead certain to start at 12, but Andre was there and he was playing well. And then, you've got Villy and Willemse at the back. Like, imagine going 1 to 23 and trying to manage that. It's crazy.
I loved one thing I loved about it. I mean, the chasing the sun is obviously we get the insight from the coaches as well, and in the meetings, it when they speak in front of the media, there's always a sense of calm, of we know what we're doing, everything is planned. But for me to see the actual debates, same debates we were having on Twitter with people like we have the same debates like, oh, I mean, Dwayne should start. Dwayne is out. He's playing great for Ulster. Jasper, we're still not sure about it. How was that for you seeing the coaches actually behind the scenes, seeing how hectic those debates were? Because they do, like when they speak in front of the media, there's all this calmness. We have a plan. We got this and this. But now we actually see it's actually like it gets heated in those coaching debates.
Absolutely. And everyone is so passionate. I think that's what's really cool. Like no one's rolling over when Rusty speaks, which is really what we always want. Like, you always want to have that. Like if there's a swing vote and no one's put a good argument, then Rassie will make a call or Jacques will make a call. But like everyone is so passionate about what they're saying, and everything they're saying is true. And but then someone's argument just slightly gets the edge, and I love it. Just everyone is. I think everyone is so in tune with what's going on, and the same as everything, and even in businesses where everything looks like it's running, but then like the management or the board are having these decisions about which direction to go. You don't see that, as you mentioned. You see everyone like they have a plan, they know what's going on, and when they come on the field, the players know what's cracking, but they don't know that conversation that goes on, and you just trust it. And what has happened though, like when Rassie Erasmus first came into the mix, and when we created the director of rugby role, and all we wanted was some continuity and a succession plan, and it's starting to happen. But everything that he does, and every plan that Jacques Nienaber has, or Mzwandile Stick has, or even Don Human has, like everyone goes with it. That's what we've created. We've created that culture where, like, imagine saying, right, if France are kicking too much and they're kicking to 22, just call a mark or scrum. If we'd said that in 2018 or 2017, like, we shit the bed, But like even weird and crazy things, like looking at how they want to manipulate people, opposition, and make sure that we can isolate the problem and then dominate is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And we've got an incredible group of coaches. And the group of coaches that are coming in now, I think we're going to see a whole bunch of different stuff. And what I love about it is, with Tony Brown and Flannery in there, is like they're mostly going to be the same players. So the same players are going to have gone through 2-3 different groups of coaches. Imagine the growth that they're having, like a Damien Willems. Imagine the growth he's going to have in the next 3-4 years. It's crazy to think of that.
And also, Shoki, what I love the most is I remember when Mzwandile Stick sort of came back into the setup, and he was one of those scapegoats, obviously from the Alistair Coetzee days. I mean, he was assistant coach back then as well. But from Chasing the Sun 1 and now into the second one, we've seen 2 instances of him almost having a go at Rassie, saying, like Chasing the Sun 1, he was like, no, Colby's going to start. No, Colby won't start. He mismanaged practice. And now he's putting his neck on the block going, listen, Jasper's my guy. I think Jasper's to start. And they've backed him each time. And for me, it's such a great vote of confidence for him, for a guy who has taken a lot of shit, has people wondering, like, what's his actual role? What is he actually doing? Now you can see there's 2 actual proofs of going, we back this guy, Stalker, as they call him, we back Stalker. And I love seeing stuff like that, and seeing him having a voice, and you can see that, and the coaches actually going with what he has to say, and he's been right on both accounts.
Yeah, I've been super happy like watching him from the beginning. There was a lot of chatter around like Rassie's team when he brought them in, even like Matt Proudfoot when he brought him in. I mean, like that was challenging, but everyone's come good, and like that's what happens when you have belief, when you have trust in every space. But Stalker's been incredible. I love his sense of humor. I also love the way that he delivers everything. But the thing that is the most important, and what you've highlighted, is everyone trusts him and trusts the system and what's going on. And that's amazing. And like in the beginning, everyone moaned about it. Everyone wondering what was going on, but it's come good. And he's come good for 2 World Cup cycles with some incredible like insights, great stuff. And when he talks about the Dakar Rally and taking your Audi to the Dakar Rally, like he made his point. It was funny, but you can literally see that, like in your mind's eye, you can see what he's saying, and you know exactly what they need to do, which is a sign of a great coach as well.
I mean, we'll get to the players and all that, but the coaches, I always get fascinated by just the coaches whenever you watch Chasing the Sun and the discussions, and how they actually talk about the planning. They talk about obviously how they prepare for the team, and talk about Rassie Erasmus. I mean, I love the way he broke down how they're going to win the World Cup in terms of there's 4 big games and Scotland is number 1, because he is right, because we lose that Scotland game, very good chance of losing Ireland, a good Ireland side. It's a slippery slope, because then Scotland doesn't have to beat Ireland in the last game. It opens up their World Cup, and I remember at that time we almost didn't think about it that way as fans. Yeah, we may have like, okay, we could lose to Scotland, but I love how he broke it down because then, like, obviously now we get the bigger picture in hindsight. So it's such a great way to approach, and I love how the mindset was going into that game. There was no talks of down the hill, the coaching staff, Don Human, everyone, how they just honed in on Scotland, saying we win this game because Russ is right. I mean, either way, you're playing France or New Zealand in the quarterfinal, so there's no to hide. So I just love how the approach was going to the Scotland game.
Yeah, it almost looked like he had to sell it, which I found very interesting. We all knew that if you beat Scotland, you were pretty much guaranteed to go to the quarterfinals, just because of how it worked. It could have got to a strange situation where we lost to Ireland, but then what happens if Scotland beat Ireland? Then it would have got very funny. But I think Rassie and the coaching staff understood the process moving forward. They understood what Ireland were capable of doing, especially with Scotland, and they were banking on that. But the most important thing was about respecting Scotland, and that's what came across, like how he pushed into like how we have to focus on their two teams and focus on what they do and how they do it. Because the truth was, and what he's saying is 100% right, like we win that game, it makes the rest of our group a lot easier. If we don't win that game, every other game matters, seriously. And, the players mentioned it at the end of the documentary, how training was so different and how everyone felt freer. So that first week, 2 weeks leading up to that game against Scotland must have been wild. And they highlighted it by saying every time they trained, they had to go train again. Or when they thought it was done, it wasn't.
Yeah, it's crazy because I never thought that Scotland could beat Ireland. I think that, I mean, we've seen that, but it was always, if they beat us, then pretty much in the quarterfinals. You expect them to beat Romania, you expect them to beat Tonga. Whereas for us, it's that Ireland, because like that Ireland game, as big as it was, it turns into, like you said, as I said, another World Cup out of the four big games that you got to win. And sometimes, like some sides, that fourth big game is. I always feel certain teams like it's very hard to play four big games in a row, or four big games, because sorry, one of them, they're gonna catch up to you eventually. And I mean, you look at the Springboks. I mean, yes, I mean we took Ireland. Yes, we lost to Ireland, but then obviously the bigger picture maybe could have helped us because we had those two easier games, and then obviously got in the playoffs. But I just love the way Rassie then broke it down. It just showed they planning. But before we go to the players, Shoki, I think I must talk for me an unsung hero. There was Felix Jones. It was a bit quieter in the first Chase in the Sun, but we was more vocal now. We heard a lot more from his side, and it just shows like such a massive role he played for the Springboks. And I was so glad that we got a lot more insight from him because he's a sharp rugby brain.
Yeah, and we knew it, but like me, this whole behind the scenes stuff is my gravy. I want to know what's going on. Like I want more. I wish I could just sit in team meetings, even if they're 3, 4, 5 hours long. Just that. I'll just keep quiet and listen. Just please, I want to hear. And that's why what you say is bang on, because we're starting to see more. We know it, we've seen it, but we've never heard it.
Yeah.
And now he's spending a lot more time and what he talks about. And the thing is, he's so clear. Like he is so clear in what happens and what needs to go on and what this player is capable of. He talks about how Manny can identify space. I think Felix Jones can identify players who can identify space before anything. He's incredible. So yeah, it was awesome seeing him chat a lot more.
I think talking about Mane is a perfect segue. I mean, we saw in the first episode the two main players that they sort of highlighted in the background story was obviously Dwayne and Mane. But sort of with Mane deserves his own documentary. Like I was thinking the other day, like Mane Lebakra deserves his own documentary because if you go back, let's say 2021 Lions of the Lions tour, if you had said Mane Lebakra would be the starting 10 for the Springboks in the World Cup 2023, I would have said you like chaos. Like you don't know anything about rugby. Like this bloke is barely just let the Sharks. He's even going to start at the Stormers because there's like Jean-Luc Dupree. I mean, Du Plessis, like, there's so many, like, other tens, like, is this only going to start? And then I just love seeing, I just wish that, only part I wish is that they obviously spend a lot more time talking about the transition from, leaving the Storm, going to the Stormers and how much he had grown. And then, but obviously, like, seeing his background, where it come from Humansdorp and what rugby meant to him, because Shocky, that oak, I mean, him and Deon Fourie, I always look at like, it's a hell of a story, especially for Marnie, to go from nowhere near a buck, nowhere near, to starting and opening game in the World Cup.
Those two stories, Manie Libbok and Deon Fourie, are probably the two biggest. I think only one that maybe comes close is Jean Kleyn. But like, if you look at those two players, Libbok and Fourie, and you go back in their career and go, is he going to be a Springbok? Is he going to be like a serious Springbok? And is he going to be a World Cup winning Springbok? Those are the two biggest stories for me. The one thing, like, I wish Manie could have his own. I want to read his book one day. I will happily sit through 3, 4, 5 hour documentary on him, because he touched on it. Some of his family and his friends touched on it, but him and he's telling his story about staying with his grandmother and what she taught him. And when he got given that green shirt, and he said, it was at that moment I decided I want to play for the Springboks. Go from then, and then have a think about his journey from SA Schools, SA Under-20, Bulls, what happened there, Sharks, Stormers. Like, just think about that journey. And a lot of people don't know a lot about it, because he was really, after SA Schools and a little bit at the Bulls, like, he fell away a little bit. Like, he's had that fire burning that whole time. He's had that want, that need, that desire, going and going and going through 3 franchises, and then getting into a franchise and doing what he did with the Stormers. Like, you can go on and win the URC or Super Rugby and still not get a look in at test level. And he's pushed it further and gone on to do it, and then gone to the World Cup. Like, that journey is incredible, and something that I think, we all need to really take notice of, because he's never stopped believing. And there must have been some seriously dark times and some seriously challenging times, with him personally, with other coaches, because he disappeared at the Bulls and he kind of disappeared a bit at the Sharks too, and then came to the Stormers. And when he came to the Stormers, we always thought like he was coming to the Stormers to play behind Willemse or someone else. And then, he's driven that home hard, and the belief that he's had, and that man's got the thickest skin in the world, and I love him for it. He's an incredible human being.
I must say, I remember now, I've been in group chats when you're still in the Sharks, when we're debating whether should you go to the Cheetahs so you get some game time, because those days the Cheetahs didn't have a 10. I still remember him going to Stormers thinking it's last chance saloon for him, in terms of, you've gone to the Bulls, you've gone to the Sharks, now again the Stormers are giving you a chance. It doesn't work out here. Like, where do you go from here? Like, do you... And it's a hard thing to look back now. I mean, as him being argued probably the best 10 in the URC, might have stayed with Sexton probably gone, and and what top 10 fly off in the world, even behind him. And like, it's a crazy journey. But like, then you got like the Dwayne journey. Dwayne Vermeulen is a different one, because he's a Springbok going into the World Cup. He's a Springbok legend, whether he goes or not. He doesn't play a single minute. He's a Springbok legend. And we remember the test match at not Loftus, at Ellis Park. I watched it when he got pulled off in the first half, and it looked like, I think Dwayne is done. Like, and then to see him at the World Cup and his story, we hear about his dad. I just love the line from his sister when he said, "Rugby is Dwayne and Dwayne is rugby." And I think it's such a fitting way to describe an absolute legend of Springbok rugby.
Yeah. When asked like what does he want to do, or when Rassie asked him what does he want to do, he got emotional just giving that answer. Like, the answer was only going to the World Cup. There was nothing else. It wasn't starting or being, or he just wanted to go. And the fact that a player like that quality, what he's done for South Africa, doesn't think he's got enough in the bank to go to the World Cup, also says something about the Springbok environment and how much those players value everything. Like him, when his mom talks about him starting, or his sister talks about him starting, and that he has to start, he must never not start. He went 60 something test matches without being on the bench.
Yeah.
Like, That's crazy. No wonder he hates it. Like that's just life. It's normal for him, you know? Um, but yeah, like agreed. He could have not gone to the World Cup and still been one of our greatest eights. You know, just thinking about the 2019 performance in the final was ridiculous. But it shows how much it means and what it is and what the Springboks as a team, what they represent. Like everybody wants to be part of that. Like you don't have to show my face anywhere. Like I'll carry tackle bags and not play a single game. I just want to be in that environment. That's how amazing that environment is and what they've created. They've created something that you can't copy and paste anywhere. And they've created it and they've thrived on it. Talking about the Springbok environment, I'm going to be quite controversial. I was thinking about this, like there was a couple of guys having an argument on our Twitter chat, which I've muted now, about like the All Blacks and this and that. But I think the Springboks there's no doubt about it that this Springbok group are the greatest test rugby group of players ever. Like they have done the best ever because if you think about where the Springboks came to win the World Cup in 2019, no other team has done that. England were great for 2-3 years beforehand. The All Blacks were great forever, and then they won 2 in a row. Like no team has come from the dark spaces where we were and gone on to win a World Cup a year and a bit later and then go back to back. So it's the greatest rugby team we've ever seen. And like you can't argue the facts. It's not a winning record or anything. It's just look at what happened and where they were. No World Cup winning team has been like that 24 months before a tournament ever.
No, 100%. I think and you can see with the players in the group that we have, the debate it's always tough for me because I do think, like, for example, like your point is valid, but I always think like 2016, 17 was also self-inflicted in the way the Ellis Coetzee debacle, how it was handled. But obviously, again, if you're not going to beat Italy, unfortunately, you can't keep your job. Like that's I don't care what circumstances. Unfortunately, results also like my man, you got to beat Italy. Like you got to be better than you can't be losing 57 to the All Blacks, but. It is it's a great debate because I have this debate often with debates about the greatest side, and for me the hardest part about that is where also the All Blacks is the in between, the record in between World Cups, which is and it's a very but again you can make a case for both sides of being the greatest now, and it's definitely those are the two, but like going back to the Springboks, shocking. What I loved is also like the documentary. I don't like when they only show positive stuff, like kumbaya, happy go lucky. I love when Dwayne does mention, he goes like, I was a bit bleak. I was not starting. But I have to go from negative Dwayne to like, okay, help the guys prepare. And I love straight off that Rassie does talk and says, guys, some of you aren't going to play the starting game in the World Cup. Yes, you wanted to be there. Unfortunately, the team works out. But just because you're playing the starting game also doesn't mean you can play in the final or the semi-final.
Yeah.
And I love that he does address that, and you see them mentioning it because, like I said, like I don't like it when you watch documentaries. Everything's great, There's no controversies. But like, I love that they do mention that and they do call that out because I think what makes this group so great with the coaches and some of the players touched on it is the honesty between the players and the coaches. Rassie tells you what to expect. And you'll know where you play, you're not playing for certain games. Like especially 2019, they said. Some of you are playing against Canada and Namibia. That's it. If you don't like it, I'll get someone else who'll buy into this. And it's so refreshing to see that honesty, but also shocking. I love that players do say, shit, man, I want to play as well. I also want to start in the opening game in the World Cup.
Yeah, it's awesome because that's the truth. We want the honesty. There's no ways you can be happy the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw chasing the 1-2, chasing the 1-2, 1-2, check. Chasing the Sun 1 is, I think everyone was on a high of what had happened when like Rassie came in and what he's done and the team he's brought in. And I think there was a lot of positivity there, but we want the rawness and we're going to get it now. Like these guys don't have to impress anyone anymore. I think they put all the swear words in the first episode so people kind of knew the lay of the land. Like this is what's going to happen. There's a lot of guys like I want to hear about it. We want to see the balance. Like life's always about balance. And Dwayne was very vulnerable there, like very, and he spoke about stuff and how he hates being. That was great. Like, I hate playing off the bench. Like, start me or don't play me is essentially what he's saying. And then he was like, well, hang on, there's a bigger picture here. Like, he said that upset Dwayne's got to be fine or something like that, because I need to let Jasper be the best Jasper, because there's a journey that needs to happen, and there's a result that needs to happen in the World Cup final that needs to happen with Jasper starting and Dwayne starting, or whatever the case may be. And the same in 2019, there are a lot of guys that didn't get involved a lot because they weren't playing the big games, but the value they added in preparation and everything. And the coaches spoke about it back then as well. And this is what's happening now. Like, everyone is there. It's a squad. You don't win a World Cup without a squad. And I'm sorry, like, Ireland are catching strays here, but like they played their best team the whole way through. Like, was that a reason why they didn't go all on to win it? Is that something? The Springboks, like a lot of the stats, the players not always represented in the tournament stats because we spread the load, and that's the only way to be successful. You can't, like, you've got to prove it to be otherwise. But as it stands now, we had a squad in 2019 and we had a squad now, and we've dominated. Well, we won.
Yeah, I mean, no bonus points in a playoff game. But Shockey, like, what makes something also that makes Chasing the Sun very nice is the fact that is my favorite. It's always the quotes. That's what I live for. My favorite one is, is Mane in a box saying that what's it called? We keep chasing lost causes, and just we chase lost causes. And I think,
amazing.
For me, that sums up the Springbok scramble defense. It's the best scramble, I think, in the world by far, because the Springboks do concede a lot of line breaks. They do. I mean, it's high risk, high reward, and the teams get around, and the teams get around them. But the fact that they're always able to flip and hell, just make the last tackle, and then also find their way to go from a lost cause to back and to slow the game down again and sort of get dominance again in that phase defensively. I think Jesus said so, Maury said so, but I think that's the perfect way to describe the Springbok loose scramble defense. That they just chase those causes.
It was the best, and you can see that that's just one little phrase that's been put up, and every player buys into it. Like, you don't ever give up. So that's the whole thing: is that you've always got to give everything, and the coaches want to see that all the time as well. But the way that Mane explained that, and he almost felt bad saying Jesse missed it, and then he was like, he only just missed it. But Jesse, I thought, made a great move there. He was slightly off, but I think the intercept was on.
Yeah.
But the most important thing was that chasing lost causes was not about just head down running. It's Mane's pointing, and he keeps telling Damian Willemse, I've got this, man. You've got to shift on. And I mean, there was a 3-on-1 overlap there at one stage, and Damian, like, Mane made the tackle on Darcy Graham, and then the next pass, Willemse had squished. So it had to go long, but none of it happened. The truth is Darcy Graham should have passed before, but even after he beat Willemse, he could have put in another pass. So that's also what the nerves of the day do to you. And that's also what the Springbok defense does to you, because everyone knows that they are chasing you. That's the thing. It's not a Springbok mindset of chasing the lost causes. Is that infiltrates into every other player's subconscious, and they know. Like, Darcy Graham knew he was coming. He's like, I'm gonna outrun him. Like, was it an ego thing? I don't know, but you got crunched.
And Sharky, we've got about 7 minutes. If you look back at that episode, what is your favorite moment?
Without a doubt, my favorite moment was the Manie Libbok story and what he did and how that came through. My other favorite moment was seeing the detail and how the Springbok coaches break down the opposition. So that board up on with all the players and a little caption on that player and what he does. The level of insight that the players have for individuals on the field, their individual opposition, is amazing. They talk about how, like, to manage this team and what they do. Cool. Faf, whoever's starting at 9, you've got to communicate. You've got to get that ball down. and then start sending it wide. And this is what this player does in defense. Like Finn's only never going to hit you straight on, stuff like that. But that was number two. Marnie's story, absolutely number one. And I think we're going to hear a lot more from Marnie during the rest of these episodes as well, because he's quite a vital part in it.
My favorite is, I've got two favorites. One is I just love the Springbok coaches breaking down a position in terms of like, like Don Human saying, but Paul Schoeman, like get underneath him. Like, you should, man. I saw this at the Bulls. And like I love like
it's passionate as well.
They're passionate, and also they know how to G up. Because South Africans, like, we're passionate people. Like sometimes we need to, like, yes, you can give me X's and O's, but like sometimes give me a visual thing. Don't tell me that we need to break them down physically. Just tell me, like, Damien, what car do you drive? You're Audi. If you go to Dakar Rally, your car means shit. We're taking this looks to the Dakar Rally. Like, I love that. Like, sometimes is they use real life visual things. Like, instead of going like, they don't want to hear, coach, guys, we need to, do the, like, just say, like Rassie goes, just fuck them up physically. Simple as that. Like, and also, I love that. And my favorite is also, the morning story was great. And I loved every one of Rassie's halftime talks and the halftime talks. So, and obviously, you saw the first one in the opening episode, and he calls the players liars. And then I love the one against Scotland, when he talks about let's get a vibe, like let's fire a shot. And I'm so fascinated in the halftime team talks because, growing up, we're so used to hearing these like pump up, like, our movies make it like halftime. You must say it's the most emotional thing. And my favorite thing about halftime talks is, I remember when I used to coach, is finding the balance of cucking out, motivating sometimes. You actually got to be more, but also knowing when sometimes you just actually got to give X's and O's. Okay, guys, boom, boom. If you do this and this right, and you just let the players figure it out. So I just love the way the Springboks, the Rassie went about it, and the two contrasts. For example, the first game where we were playing well, just probably still a bit of nerves, and he goes, guys, let's get a vibe. Let's just fire let's fire a shot. And then you go from the England game where the shit was hitting the fan. And going like, Cody looks like, you're fucking lie. That speech he makes against England, for example, it was a snippet. You can only make that probably once a tournament. You can't make that every game. And I just love the contrast and the timing as to when, because you can't call us liars in the first game in 6-3 for Scotland. Because players go, coach, whoa, relax. It's the first game. Like, now you're getting, but against England, it's, guys, you're a liar. You said you won't give away penalties. You said you scrummed them. You said this. If you don't get it right, we're going home. So that fascinated me so much about how Rassie went about it. It was two snippets about how he went about those two halftime talks.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you can't use it all the time because it'll lose its impact. So, like, coaches need to address teams also with strike moves, because you can use a strike move and it'll come off, but you can't use it again straight away the next game. You have to kind of savor the moments and enjoy it and then hit again later. So the coaches are going to manage like the good cop, bad cop. They've got to bring in their certain strike moves of lies and all that. But it's amazing. And like, I can't wait. I've watched it a few times already. I can't wait for Sunday. And then once it's all done, I'm going to watch them all in an order, but I'm going to watch the game first. And then I'm going to watch, like, I've got all the games set up as well. Like, we can manage that. I think we can put like a perfect, like 8, 10, 12 hour thing together. We can put it up on a big screen at Kirstenbosch Gardens and get everyone people in. You know what I mean?
I love that. But Sharky, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time. Always nice having to chat, Chasing the Sun too. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. We'll definitely be back again next week for Rugby Bits episode. Obviously, big weekend of rugby. Bulls taking on Leinster. Stormers taking on Ulster. Repeat of the 2022 semi-final. So that's going to be great. I think the biggest thing happening this weekend is Frans Malherbe versus Steven Kitshoff. And I'm still waiting for the URC to get back to me about Leinster playing their starters. I'm ready to send them formal mails because you want to see sides back to full strength. But you guys remember, like, subscribe. We'll be back. And thank you everyone for your time. And we'll be back next week. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Sharky.